This week on Your Father's Trekcast, it is episode 2, and JP and I are going to go through episode 3 of season 3 of Picard, as well as talk about some great episodes to watch in addition, and a lot more. So stick around, don't go away. We will be right back. Podcasting. That ancient ritual of middle-aged men seeking validation in the internet age. What you're listening to now is a new Trekcast by two longtime fans who have tons to say about Star Trek and the world around it. We will inform, we will entertain, because we are Your Father's Trekcast. Starring Will as the old man gamer and JP as, well, JP. Talking about new episodes of Star Trek, old episodes of Star Trek comic books, Star Trek video games, and anything else they feel like, because hey, it's their cast. So sit back, relax, have a beverage of choice. Unless you're driving, for God's sake, pay attention to the road. Here are Will and JP talking Trek. And we're live. Hello, everybody. Welcome to episode 2 of Your Father's Trekcast.
Dwarf, open hailing frequency.
All right, hailing frequencies are open, so we want to take a second to just say hello to everybody and remind you that we are part of the Geek to Geek Media Network. This is a network of geeky podcasts and other content dedicated to promoting positivity and inclusion, as well as just showcasing some really awesome stuff. They talk about gaming. They do talk about Trek. There's another Trekcast on this network, actually, but, so check them out, too. But only after you've checked us out. They just have a ton of great stuff. Go check them out. It's at geektogeekmedia.com. That's GeekToGeek. Don't go to Geek to Geek Media with the number 2, because that's like, I guess, a single site. So geektogeekmedia.com and check it out. I also do have an adult beverage. I am drinking a Fat Scotsman. But JP, my friend, how are you tonight?
I am exquisite. I am fabulous. And I am here for the Trek.
Here for the Trek. Well, it is great to have everybody here. I'll introduce myself again, just in case you don't know. My name is Will, otherwise known as Old Man Gamer. JP is, well, you're JP.
Seemed like a good idea at the time.
It still works for me. We're two, rather Gen X guys who, have noticed a certain shortcoming as far as Trek contact goes, where we're going to look to be positive and inclusive of all Trek going forward. So we want to entice like your dads, but also you as well. Talk about new Trek, talk about a lot of old Trek. Basically just kind of, be fans and kind of gush about the thing we love, and talk about it. This week we've got a lot to go through. We're going to definitely be talking about, Picard episode 3 that was out today. On Paramount Plus, it'll be out, internationally, I think tomorrow. So if you're in another country, first of all, good on you. Let us know. But secondarily to that,
second of all, spoiler alert.
Yeah. Secondarily to that, you may not want to listen to us live because, hey, your show ain't on yet. Then we're going to talk a little bit in the Beam Me Up section. We'll talk a little bit about episodes and things to watch as a companion to this episode, with something like Picard that seems so grounded in the lore that has come before, probably more so than any new Trek. We decided that one of the features we were going to do for this was to kind of give you other episodes to go and kind of look for. So this can be an episode. In this case today, there might be talk of a movie, things of that nature. Then we're going to go through some other little news and tidbits and, and then some birthdays. It's just going to be fun. So please stick around. But I really want to know, JP, sir, how has your week been? How are you, sir?
Oh man, it has been quite the whirlwind week. We are doing lots of stuff here in my household. Got Girl Scout cookie sales going on, all sorts of stuff.
Oh dear. Email JP at Your Father's Trekcast if you've got a Girl Scout order. Yeah, it has been a pretty busy week here too. I mean, we had a snowstorm on Monday. I think you saw it earlier in the week. Um, it hit us Monday night, stuck around till Tuesday, gave us a good, and we're already being told we're going to get pounded again tomorrow. So this is fantastic. It's like we're getting winter in the span of 4 weeks as opposed to 4 months. But I'm here for it again. Working from home, what do I care? And it's nice. My son came home from being with his grandma. She had surgery, so he stayed with her for at least about the last 3 weeks. So the oldest came home tonight. He's like, man, it's good to be in my old bed. I was like, I feel you, dude. I get it. Other than that, it's been a pretty quiet. I'm playing a lot of Marvel Snap. I haven't done a lot of Snap content. Last week with the trip, I didn't have a chance on the road. And then this week, it's just been fallout from the trip, as well as kind of working this stuff for this. So I'm going to get some Snap content out, though, through my other channels, probably. I'm sure I'll find some time this weekend to finish that off. But overall, I'm pretty excited. But I mean, I think really what we should do is, if you're up for it, man, let's get into this. Let's start talking about episode 3 of Picard, because that's going to be fantastic. What do you think?
I think that's going to be tremendous.
All right, let's hit that.
Engage. No, don't engage. Energize. That's what we say in this room.
Okay, the Beam Me Up section of our show. This is this is the main topic, Energize. We're going to talk episode 3. So again, spoiler alert. If you have not watched it yet and you're watching us live, then you need to not watch us live. You need to go do something else for a little bit. Because boy, do we have a lot to go through. So, I mean, this episode, listen,
wall to wall.
It has been wall to wall. And I'm going to be honest. I mean, I don't think I'm alone here. We didn't really discuss this too much last week in episode 1, but we got a little bit more time. I don't know about you, but in some ways, Picard season 3, I've been treating it like episode 2 of Star Wars. In that episode 1, I had such high hopes for, and in such incredible, like I would even say, like I was Cal in the beginning of Titanic. I was like, God himself cannot sink this boat. I was literally like, there is no way they could screw up this Star Wars movie. Only to be reminded of how many ways you can screw up a Star Wars movie.
Yes.
But when episode 2 came around, no matter how good the trailers looked, no matter how good the previews were, there was a part of me that was like, oh, I was not as excited because of what happened with episode 1. So with Picard, it's been kind of the same thing for me. I'm a little concerned. I mean, I saw some of the news reports and media that came out about Picard a little bit, and we're seeing some things. We'll talk about that when we do our breakdown. And I also saw some reviews that I read last week, because I was traveling, so unfortunately, like reviews and stuff, I didn't want to read them, but I was bored.
I was gonna say, you bored, so you spoiled yourself.
No, I didn't spoil it, because the reviews I read, they were under instructions not to spoil it. But they would say certain things, and they weren't getting a lot of positive reviews in the early on. Like the previews of the first 5 episodes that people got, you saw a lot of people saying some pretty negative stuff. So I gotta tell you, I've had myself a little bit muted with regards to this, but I have yet to be disappointed by what's happened. There's some nitpicky stuff, and we'll go through that. But I mean,
yeah.
I'm pleasantly surprised at how much I'm enjoying this show. And I know it's fan service. I know it is. I'm okay with that. Why? Because I'm the one they're trying to service. I don't know. What do you think?
Absolutely. I mean, yeah. I'm viewing this, and I've heard them say on the Ready Room, they kind of created this as like
Trek
movie
11.
number 6.
Yeah, Trek 11.
Yeah. Well, yeah, or Next Gen 6, however you want to phrase it.
Well, it would be Next Gen 4, because they only had Generations, Final Frontier, or Generations,
First Contact.
Insurrections, and then Nemesis. So this would be Trek 5.
Yeah. Okay.
Oh, Nemesis.
So we were both
Oh.
wrong.
Yes, yes. I don't do math. Math is for suckers.
Matt. Exactly. No.
Math is for
No.
blockers.
Yeah. Exactly.
All right,
See
but
our see Will's old podcast.
yes. So you're saying though that this is supposed to be that they're saying that like this they've been treating this. Yeah, everybody's been saying that this is like the send off they should have had.
Right.
And I can get behind that a little bit. That the concern for that comes for me from the idea that that's fantastic, but you're talking about a 10-hour movie. You're going to misfire some shit.
Yeah. I mean, that's exactly why they didn't do it as a movie, so that they could do all the fan servicey stuff.
Right. Well, I mean, most movies
and let things play out more.
I don't get me wrong. I don't think they did it as. I think they didn't do it as a movie for one simple reason. Because even though this is 10 episodes of a TV show, it is woefully cheaper than making a 2-hour movie.
Yes, it is.
So I get it, and I'm here for it. I mean, again, I'm not going to poop on this right now. I've got concerns, but so I mean, what do you? So that's what they say, but what do you think about it? How do you feel about?
I'm along for the ride.
Okay.
I'm really looking forward. I want to see where we go.
Yeah, and that's yes and no. They haven't pulled me in yet. They're getting closer.
Man.
This episode did a very big step toward it. And again,
Okay.
I say, this should have been episode 2. They should have done a 2-hour premiere, and this should have been episode 2. This would have served to pull in a little quicker, but because you made me wait 3 weeks, there's a part of me that's like, okay, you should be, we're now past almost the first third. Like, let's go. I don't like how they're dribbling. I don't like how they promised us this wasn't going to happen, but it's exactly what's happening. You're dribbling the cast. Okay, so episode 1, we get Beverly. Of course, we're going to get Picard. We get Beverly and Riker. Okay, we've had Riker before, and you can't tell this story without Beverly. And I love that they're giving this to Gates McFadden. She deserves it. She was always... I mean, I've been watching a lot of old Next Gen, and it's terrible. She is Sigourney Weaver's character in Galaxy Quest sometimes. She's literally just sitting there going, Captain, everybody's hurt. I mean, to give her something with a little meat on it, I'm all for it.
Absolutely.
But I don't like how they're dribbling people in. So episode 1 is that. Episode 2, they bring us War. This one, they show Deanna in a flashback. No. Yeah. I need... you know what? We should have LaForge. We should have had LaForge.
I was absolutely about to say that.
We should have had LaForge this episode. You should have had her reach out to her dad going, Dad, we're in trouble. We're in the middle of, have some sort of protocol because that's Geordi's MO. Like, he'd have some way for his daughter to send him, which is probably how they're going to get out of this, by the way.
Yeah.
I'm going to lay that out there right now. There's some... But in any event, I do kind of feel like they need to stop dribbling in the Next Gen, and you just need to bring him in. Who are we missing? We're missing Geordi. Well, Data's not going to be there. So, Lore. But we're missing Geordi, and we're missing...
and Troy. Yeah.
Troy
in person.
Yeah, and then Lore. So, yeah, we've got 4. And I'm sorry, they should have brought Zila, but anyway. And we'll talk a little bit, too, about Wesley. But overall, I've got to say, I'm on board. Okay, you got me. I'm on board. I'm watching it every week. It's something I watch first thing Thursday morning. You've got me there. You're at the Mandalorian level of my watch status. So, but with that, let's kind of break down the episode a little bit. Again, spoiler.
Yeah.
I loved how the episode kind of picked up where we left off. They've all been kind of doing that so far. It kind of picks up with what's going on. It kind of reminds you this is where we're at, that, the captain is, captain's about to go to battle. We're going to go to battle.
So he went right under the ship, right?
Yes.
He fired photons and then went under and further into the nebula.
Correct. But they got hit and he got injured.
Yes.
So
wait, no, Was that now or no? That was
The captain got
that.
injured, right? Or in the beginning.
Uh, no, not yet.
Oh, okay.
Not yet. That's after we go have the flashback first. So we
Okay.
have the flashback where Picard and Riker are toasting the birth of Riker's son, Thaddeus.
Okay. Yes, that's right. And this is the son that obviously passed away. So
Right.
there's a lot there to unpack. Again, Picard. It's kind of weird because this is the first time we kind of see on the other side, and I made sure to write that down. Like we see, Riker giving Picard kind of advice.
Yeah. And I hope you can have this feeling someday.
Yeah. And I'm here for it. I think that was a great, I obviously love how they de-aged Jonathan Frakes. I did. I thought that was really kind of fantastic. And yeah.
Did they actually de-age him, or did they just put
Oh, they
dye
just
in
dyed
hair?
his beard and stuff. Yeah, but that's just it. It's not like they did any sort of like face thing. It was really just they dyed his beard
Oh
and
man.
which is kind of what we do at this age, man. When this is what happens. We dye our beards and and yeah, Frakes did fine. I really thought it was overall that part was a highlight for me. You know,
Yeah. Yeah, no, absolutely. It was wonderful.
yeah. They're talking a lot about that, and then they kind of go into Deanna. Deanna basically acting kind of like the shrew wife, which worked for the character, which worked for their characterization, where she's like, what'd she say? I haven't slept in 7 hours, and I'm covered. This baby is
Yeah.
projectile vomiting.
Yeah.
So,
And she's like, and bring the whiskey.
and bring the whiskey, which I'm like, okay, so we're not breastfeeding. Got it. It was,
So many inappropriate comments that could be made right there.
yeah, it was fantastic. So they kind of go into that. Then they go into kind of, the fight with, the crew, the ship, the Titan and the Shrike go at each other. The Titan gets hit. Down goes Shaw. He's severely injured, like incredibly injured. And then, so on his way out,
Yep.
which I thought he was talking to, I really thought he was talking to Picard when he looked
Yeah.
back, but he gives command of the Titan to Riker.
Yeah, but before
Yeah.
this battle happens, there's something else we need to touch on real quick.
Go ahead.
And that's that Ensign LaForge
Well, yeah, I got that
goes
in
and
there.
tries to check in on Seven.
Yeah, you're right. Actually, that does come before then. Basically he sends the help. He's like, look, you guys are at the end of a 36-hour shift. Go get some rest. And he relieves, the helmsman and ops channel. She immediately goes to, yeah, you're right, because Riker don't get command until Beverly and Jean-Luc talk.
Right.
She immediately goes to Seven's room and basically kind of tells her that it felt like she was kind of saying, listen, if you're going to mutiny, I'm in. She calls her Seven, which I thought was fantastic.
Yeah. Commander Seven.
Commander Seven. Yeah. I was I liked that. I like her. And I mean, it's kind of cool because she's the one who's his daughter, right?
I believe
She's
so.
actually LeVar Burton's daughter.
Yes, I believe that
Okay.
is correct.
Because he's got two, one is, one isn't.
Right.
Because she seems to have a lot of his old early mannerisms as far as season 1 goes. And I really enjoyed their whole thing. Was that where she told him, like, my dad was one of the greatest
Yes.
engineers in Starfleet, and when I decided to go and become a pilot, people were like, what a waste.
Yep.
I
That's
was like,
exactly when that was.
and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, Your dad was the blind pilot of season 1. Like Roddenberry,
Yes.
and that was and Roddenberry even said it. He's like, I just kind of like the idea that the person driving the Enterprise is blind. I'm like, okay, that's the kind of guy you are.
Yeah, I still think they could have done so much. I mean, back in the
87.
late in 87, they could have done something. I know by now we would be doing it Wi-Fi, but I would have loved to see him plug in his visor more often.
I was kind of okay with them not doing that. It would have been the visor alone became such a deus ex machina. A lot of the times, like they wouldn't have gotten out of a situation if Geordi didn't have his visor. Like, it just. For me personally, I'm kind of okay with how they did it. To be honest, I mean, you look at the Next Gen cast and we talk about how great it was and how well it was casted, and it was. But it's not like they landed it out of the gate. Like, it became better casted as time went on. They didn't know how to use Tasha Yar or Geordi LaForge at all. Like, they steered into Geordi's blindness for a while, and then they realized that's kind of not really dramatic because and it's kind of shitty. And with Tasha, they tried to make her into this she-bad warrior woman, and it just, neither one of them landed. Worf made so much more sense as security chief.
I wonder if they'd been able to land Tasha's character better. What would Worf have been?
I think what they would have done, had they been able to land Tasha's character better, they would. I think she probably would have been moved out of security chief somehow got a promotion to. I don't know where you'd promote her. She wouldn't be chief engineer, obviously, because he was perfect for that. And when that was a stroke of genius on whoever came up with it. And I've read a bunch of books. A bunch of people take credit for it, but whoever came up with the idea of Geordi being in engineering. Because in season 1, I don't know how many times you've ever watched season 1, but it's really almost hysterical to watch them have so many different chief engineers. Like they had Argento at one point, and then they had some woman at some point, and then they had, it was just consistently new and different chief engineers for absolutely no reason. Like, what kind of turnover do we have on this ship? To put a named character there, and it gave Geordi something to do. Well, that's when they landed it. What's that?
Yep, but you've got 1,000 people on the ships.
Mm-hmm.
How many chief engineers can you have in those 1,000 people?
Yeah, well, you're only supposed to have one. It's still because that's just it. It was 1,000 people. It was 1,000. It was 1,000 crew complement, but the crew was probably more like 300 to 400, and the rest were 500, and the rest were families. The fact was they allowed, the crew was 1,000 because think about it, for every crew member, if they're married, you have their spouse and however many kids. So every crew member could have 3. So, up to 3 or 4, that's how that worked. At least that's how I always got to it. I was like, that ship does not require 1,000 people.
No, you're right. And they also had room for the dignitaries that they would be ferrying around or whatever.
So, I mean, Enterprise, that was the thing about the Enterprise D, and it was something they moved away from when they gave us the E. But I kind of miss that, and I think there was they got a lot of story beats out of that. A lot of different episodes, having the family on the ship. On one hand, you're like, Mother Hucker, like cause and effect. I just watched that the other day, and I'm like, how many times do we blow up these 1,000 people? And at no point did after that, okay, we have blown this ship up. Like for 17 days straight. And at no point did somebody go, we might not want to have as many kids on this ship. Like this seems remarkably dangerous.
This might be a bad idea.
So I get why they moved away from it, but they also got such great story elements out of it. Like the episode where like they hit that quantum fissure and the kids are with Picard in an elevator. Like you just had we wouldn't have Keiko O'Brien. Like, there was such great stuff going there that, but I mean, again, they just never they didn't know what to do with Geordi and Tasha. I mean, so they killed Tasha and they moved Geordi to engineering. And that is when that show started to fire. Now, season 2 still was not great. Unfortunately, Pulaski, they didn't know how to write for her. They didn't know what they wanted her to be a female Leonard McCoy, but for some reason still flirt with the captain. She landed flat, and there was nothing Mulder could do. Like there was nothing. She did the absolute best she could, and they just didn't know how to write her. In the beginning, they're writing her like a mean crusher, and then when they try to change her a little bit, it never landed. Season 3 is when but season 2 fired almost relatively well after that with Geordi in engineering and Worf on the bridge as the security. It started to work. Bringing back Gates McFadden really allowed that show to blossom. So I loved it, and I'm a big fan of the cast. It's one of the reasons I want to watch season 3, and they're trickling them in. I'm kind of a little annoyed, but in any event, after Seven and LaForge kind of have their talk, we finally get we get what we all came for. All right, we get Picard,
the main event. Yep.
Yeah, Picard and Crusher, and this is, the two of them are still. They can ping pong off of each other like no time has passed. Now, let's face it, Picard is slowed down. Like Stewart has lost. Because the guy is 97,000 years old. He's still very dramatic, but when it comes to things like righteous anger and passion, it's a little.
He gets
rough.
A little foamy at the mouth.
It gets a little rough. It's not. It's still there, and I still feel it because the writing is there. But Gates McFadden is carrying this scene. Yeah, in a lot of ways.
Now I want to stop for a moment.
Sure.
The way that Jean-Luc and Beverly were back and forth, it almost felt like they were trying to put Jean-Luc as an allegory for female health care in the United States.
I didn't get that. I really didn't. In fact,
with the reproductive rights and everything.
Yeah, I listen. I do not even want to get close to that landmine, dude. Let's not even, because I really didn't feel it was that. I felt it was much more about, and this is something that happens, is that a single mother will sometimes make a decision for her child about the level of involvement the father is going to have. It happens. It's happened to friends of mine. And that, I don't think that has anything to do as much with reproductive rights as it does sometimes maturity level of the person, the people involved, whether it be the mother and her maturity level or the father and his maturity level. It has to do with that and that relationship. I think they did that very well here. I think they kind of discussed it. Beverly gave her explanation. Saying that, do you remember that day on blah, 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 7, we knew it was kind of the last time, they didn't say she was about to go to Starfleet, but she's like, we knew it was kind of the last time. And then you immediately get involved in this. And then I find out I'm pregnant and I'm going to tell you what's going on. And then you immediately get kidnapped for 3 weeks. And and she's like, and I realized to myself, this is how it's going to be. Yeah. That felt, and she's wrong. And she is absolutely, and Picard is 100% in the right on this, because his argument is such that he's like, but you made the decision for me. You didn't tell me. You didn't give me the opportunity. And she kind of throws his family back at him, which we talked about, I think, last week. That you never wanted to be a family man. You never saw a wife and kids in your future. And I hear echoes, and we'll talk about this in, companion stuff. You didn't want him in your world, but I wanted him in mine. I'm like, it's got a lot of allegories to that. I felt they were really emoting the scene as best they could. Again, I'm grading Stewart on a curve. Again, you're 97 years old. Because sometimes in my head, it's like reading a novel and I'm hearing old Picard, like not old like him now. 87, 90 Picard, where if he was in his prime and they did this, holy shit, he'd have her against the wall verbally. But, what did you think of this? Like, I mean, we'll talk a little bit about the conflict of it next, but what did you think?
You make good points, and I can very much see, both sides of the argument. Yes, he deserves to be in his child's life.
If he wants to be. Well, he deserves to be informed. Let's say he deserves to be informed.
He deserves the opportunity.
Yeah.
But at the same time, yes, it does paint a huge target on the child. You can't say that that's not a valid point.
And I imagine that after the Enterprise D destruction, one of the reasons there were no families on the Enterprise E is that I imagine Starfleet took a look at that and said, yeah, no. So I get it. Like, it's not like his kid's going to be necessarily under his guard all the time.
Patrick Stewart is 82 years old.
Okay. I'm sorry. Forgive me, Mr. Stewart or Sir Stewart, for calling you 95,000. I apologize profusely. You're obviously not that old. Just because your social security number is 7 doesn't mean that you're 975 years old. I get it.
I just had to look that up because
I don't blame you.
During the Ready Room this week, they made mention that other than Wesley and LeVar Burton for one more year, all of the original cast are in their 70s.
Yeah, that's true.
At least.
That is true. I loved this. Don't get me wrong. I really did. But I mean, this feels real. We'll talk about it a little later. This is the thing that gets me concerned about Picard, is that we are not used to seeing this. Okay, we are not used to seeing conflict between crew members. Now, they're not part of the same crew anymore, but we are not used to seeing, Picard and Crusher having more than a 35-second debate about something, and certainly never a knockdown, drag-out verbal argument.
And they also talked about this on this week's Ready Room, that the actors really dug the being able to have conflict with each other,
and so did the writers. And believe me, that's why. Ronald Moore says it. He's famous for it. He's like, we pushed back against the no conflict doctrine as often as we could. And, again, that was Berman. Berman held to Roddenberry's ideals. That being said, yeah, it's a little, it struck me a little bit. I'm just saying it was a little bit different. I loved it though. And I loved the fact where he's like, he asked the question we are going to, which is, okay, but what about the accent?
Yes.
And I gotta tell you, they made one mistake with that. She needed to sit, she's like, where she says, oh, well, he studied in London and I couldn't get him to drop it no matter how hard we tried. I'm sitting there going, you missed it. You missed a chance. You should have said Paris.
Yes.
You should have said Paris. Yeah. Because holy shit, it would have been 1,000 times funnier had they said Paris. Like, okay, in the Star Trek world, the British accent is Paris. Okay.
Then that would explain Jean-Luc's accent.
That would explain Jean-Luc. So after that, Riker and Picard start talking. And basically, Picard is like, I'm out. She made a decision. And she doesn't want me to have anything to do with it. So fine, I'm not going to have anything to do with him. Blah, I'm going to take my ball and I'm going to take my ball, Will, and go home. And Riker again kind of verbally jacks him up and says, look, you need to get to know him. You need to go in and talk to him because he's your son and you don't know how long you have. And again, we're reminded that Riker lost a son. And that does seem to register and resonate with Picard, but not enough to change his mind. And then and then I think this is where they get called to the bridge because the strike is coming. And
and Vadic finds them quote unquote,
right where they should be.
They should be, which should start setting off all sorts of
And it
signals
did.
saying, wait a minute.
Yep. So they get into a battle. The bridge is hit. Shaw goes down and is really, really, really injured, like incredibly injured.
Yeah.
Blood everywhere, which again is not something we saw on the old track, man. They very rarely got into the blood. They'd get phaser burned or whatever, but they would very rarely, and there'd be like matted blood or whatever. No, he's spitting it up and talking with blood.
I think that was probably part
broadcast standards and practice.
Yeah,
so what that was.
Standards practice. Exactly. Yep.
But
exactly. With same reason that the Klingon blood was purple in Undiscovered Country.
They wanted to keep it PG. So on his way out, Shaw is like, you got us into this. You get us out of it. And you think he's going to hand command to Picard. But oh no, he hands command to Riker. And I'm immediately like, okay.
An actual not retired officer.
Well, isn't Riker retired now?
So and that's a question that I have too, because he was retired in season 1.
Yeah, and he came back and kind of took command for a while. Because you never retire. You can always, you're like a professor emeritus.
Right.
But I think he did that because the Titan, not this version of it, but the Titan was a ship. That's the reason I can think of. Mm-hmm. And to be quite honest, I would love it if somebody asks him and he's like, listen, we spent a lot of years not trusting synthetic life forms. And Picard's a synthetic life form. Like, make him a racist? I'm like, okay. But they didn't do that. Again, missed opportunity.
And going back to something that we talked about in episode 1, in our episode 1 was, and I guess Jack and Will both know that Picard's an android, and I ran out of time. I was going back to listen to the season 1 finale, and I ran out of time to get myself back on track on that one.
Well, and here's the thing. I mean, we didn't talk about the scene where there's also a scene where Will is talking to Jack. And Will is trying to kind of mend fences between Jack and Picard. And I think Will kind of thinks that Jack doesn't know who his father is. But Beverly, and this is what kind of sets Picard off, is Beverly says to him, he's like, so why didn't you ever tell him about me? And she said, no.
She said, I did.
When he was old enough, I told him exactly everything about you. And he wanted nothing to do with you. And that's what did it. He was, and she stabbed him verbally, like right in his heart. And again, we see Jack saying almost the same thing, and that does come, and that feels very, very true. I would not be surprised to find out Metalis was raised by a single mother, because that is a very, very real thing that I don't understand. My parents were together till the day my mother died. But where if a child feels abandoned by their father, then they will go out of their way to make sure they never have a relationship with them, no matter how much they may want it.
Right.
And it's a stubbornness thing. And we don't know if Beverly told him that he never knew you existed. Will tried to kind of say a bit about that, but it was very interesting. But now let's get back to that. So Will's now in command of the Titan, and he's taking a very defensive posture. Don't get me wrong. I love the part where just before the commercial break, that Riker sits down, and he sits down and he goes, all right, Jean-Luc, what are we going to do here now? And Picard looks at him and goes, well, I think it's time for you to start calling me number 1.
Yeah, that was after Picard did some maneuver that Riker was trying to spit out, and he's halfway through his spiel, and Picard says, firing torpedoes.
He's like, put a torpedo in front of them. Don't detonate. Don't have it proximity. Don't target them. Shoot for in front of them, and then trigger the concussion blast.
Already firing.
Yeah, already firing. Will, it was great to see those two back in action. it was great to see them, on the bridge, and it was even cool seeing, Patrick Stewart sitting at Riker's, right hand.
Mm-hmm.
But again, we start to see a little bit, and this is again going to go into some of my problems, in that we start to see a schism between the two, where Riker really wants to play defense.
Absolutely, yeah.
And Picard, for some reason, which goes against every character trait that guy ever had for all seasons of Next Gen and for all the movies, of being more of a defensive, cerebral captain. So for some reason, Picard wants to go on the offensive against a ship that is woefully outgunning them, and with a weapon they have no idea what it does. And Riker is saying, we need to hide, we need to run. We need to get out of this nebula, get someplace safe, get a hold of Starfleet, come back with a lot of ships. This is the plan. And Picard's like, we need to hide and then strike at them when they least expect it. And it's so strange to me for two reasons. Number one, again, there is no way Picard would have allowed that type of attitude by anyone on his bridge. He would have sent him out long before Riker did.
Yes.
And secondarily to that, again, that was the whole point of Generations, was Captain Kirk is this cowboy captain. Patrick Stewart is this, Picard is this thoughtful captain.
The thinking man.
Yeah. And this made absolutely no character sense at all for me. And then to have them fighting over it, and there's conflict with them, I was like, okay, this is starting to not feel like Star Trek.
I guess we can kind of go back to where you were last week, where Picard is now he's overdoing the fatherly, I'm going to protect my son and get rid of the bully. And I wonder if that they've pushed him too far down that path now.
I don't know. That's a bit more of a stretch, I think, than the whole, he's my son. Well, shit, I guess we got to fight, because that's a universal thing. This seems like such a I think they needed to present that more. I think they needed to present him being like, I need to protect Beverly and my son. They had to give us something with that. This just feels like Picard is on one last adventure, and damn it, he hates being bullied. And, meanwhile, in Best of Both Worlds Part 1, he was the one hiding in a nebula for days. Mm-hmm. And they were all about it. It just doesn't sit well with me. But again, I'm going to overlook it. I'm going to let it go.
And we foreshadowed our current situation in the very first scene of episode 1 with talking about that exact thing, hiding in the nebula.
Yeah, and that's what it is. So, and we're sticking with the Titan guys, and then we'll kind of pivot to Rafi here. I want to kind of keep it kind of separated here. So basically what starts happening is they start to realize that Vadic might have some sort of person on board, and Jack's the one who figures it out. When they bring the captain in, the captain's like, and the captain is real bad. We haven't talked about the doctor and how she's treating Crusher. Okay, we're gonna, she's kind of a douche. But Jack kind of looks at the floor and starts to realize that somehow Vadic's ship is trailing them, and he looks at the blood on the floor and he sees like the footsteps, and he's like, somehow there's a trail of breadcrumbs leading Vadic to finding us, because this nebula is so large she shouldn't be able to find them that easily. So and then he remembers talking to the Fenris Rangers, so he goes and finds Seven, and he tells Seven, hey, as a Fenris Ranger, do you remember this maneuver or whatever? And she's like, well, yeah, and then he kind of talks about it, and she's like, well, we have this technobabble device around our warp core, and they could be tracking that. And sure enough, they rush to engineering. They're going to try to, they get her out of like holding. And I forget, did he beat up the guard, right?
He punched out the guard.
Yeah.
Single shot.
So they rush to engineering, and sure enough, one of the biggest reveals of the episode, we find out that the chief engineer has been the one kind of sending, messing with the warp core, making this thing detectable so that Vedic can find them.
Was that the chief engineer?
I thought he was chief
recognize
engineer
who that was.
because she didn't treat him like he didn't belong there. So, it just, yeah, I kind of took him as chief engineer.
Okay.
And we get it. So she's going to stop it. She leaves. They're wearing masks. This radiation is all through the room. Yeah, that's what it is. It's leaking into the main engineering area. She's going to go and get it out. And sure enough, this guy comes back and is trying to stop Crusher. Crusher punches him in the face, and his face shimmers.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, shit. It's a changeling. Uh-oh. And that was fantastic. It was handled perfectly. Crusher gets the mask pulled off, and all of a sudden he's breathing in this stuff he shouldn't. Starts going down. He's trying to warn them about this guy, and he can't speak, and he goes out. Seven, just as Seven is trying to find him, he has a vision of Seven standing in front of some red vines and a red door that was almost a Discovery thing, I think. I had a lot of like that season 2 Discovery shit to it. And where
they better explain it real quick.
Well, what did she say? Find the find the something.
Find the roots.
Yeah, find the roots or something. And it's a very interesting kind of thing. Again, it's meant to be something they're going to come back to. But then Seven finds him, rushes him to sickbay. Picard wakes up to being a father. Like when he finds out that Jack is being rushed to sickbay, he gets down there in a hurry, and
he gets his 17-second turbo lift ride just like Will did.
Yes. And that's why the episode is called 17 Seconds. He gets there, and Beverly is trying to resuscitate Jack, and Jean-Luc and Stewart. Yeah, you know what? He may not have the power in his voice anymore, but every emotion was on his face. It was fantastically done.
Yes.
And you see this man who's normally so emotionally, walled up. I mean, I think of the episode with they had that muse or whatever, like who fell in love with Picard, and he kept himself, away from her and stuff. And,
yes.
I mean, nobody else could resist, but Picard could. He cannot resist this. And it was fantastic, and I was there for it. And obviously they saved Jack Crusher because he's got plot armor. So they save Jack and all that, and he kind of informs them what's happening. And just like that, something else blows up. They blew up the something with the warp core. We no longer have warp power. Yeah. And so Picard goes back to the bridge, and they come across the Shrike again. They fire they were just about to leave the nebula, and the Shrike finds them and launches the weapon. And the weapon is the portal weapon from earlier. So the Titan goes in, it comes out another portal directly in front. They start firing at it again. Again, Will's like, we got to get out of here. Tries again, fails again.
Yep. Coolest thing ever is the third time that they fire the portal weapon.
Yes. And then
where
Picard gets through to him, and he's like, look, we're not going to win this running. She's got the thing to stop us. We have to fire. We have to fight.
and then they fire the torpedoes, and she fires
her portal weapon
and puts the torpedoes right back behind them. So
in the aft section of the Titan.
Yep.
And at that point, Riker, and by the way, they are very close at this point. They had run back inside the nebula. They are very close at this point to the singularity, and Riker kicks Picard off the bridge. So that's kind of where that episode ended, with the Titan is falling into the singularity. On the other side of that, the B plot is Rafi. All right, Rafi is woke up inside I forget what the name of the ship, but Worf is there, and he's talking to her. and he kind of gives her information. We get a little bit of an information. Oh no, she wakes up. Worf is doing
Tai
the Tai
Chi.
Chi, Klingon Tai Chi. Did you recognize the opera?
I did not.
That opera is the Berlioz opera from First Contact.
Okay.
I was like, and I heard like the beginning strands of it. It's a different voice, but I heard the beginning strands, again, music major in college. I'm like, what? And sure enough, that's the opera. I'm like, very good. I get what you're doing, sir, and I like it. So the opera playing was the same as that. And, Worf introduces himself with all of his titles, and then immediately, without missing a beat, goes, "Would you like some chamomile tea?"
And I'm serving chamomile tea.
Yes. And I mean, and Rafi's face is fantastic because I had a kind of the same thing. I was like, that's funny.
I loved the Bane of Duras.
Yes. The Bane of Duras, Son of Moog, House of Martok, Bane of Duras, something else.
Son of Sergei, House of Roshenko.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And then, I mean, don't get me wrong, I did notice this right away. If we're talking about voices, it is 100% obvious Michael Dorn lost Worf. He does not have it anymore. Michael Dorn was talking with Michael Dorn's voice because he always said how he kind of got the Worf part. And if you watch any of the old stuff, he's like, well, I walked in and I talk like this, and this is how I talk. But when I walked in, I talk like this. I am Worf, son of Moog. And he had this deeper timbre that I guess at his age probably is harder to pull off. But I mean, it didn't have the rumble that I'm used to with him. And I'm just
but I can play that off mentally.
I can too.
Because he's now, as you humans say, I'm finding myself.
Yes. I can get behind that too.
We're having a calmer, gentler Worf.
Yeah, but I mean, but his voice though was so iconic in that boomingness. I mean, even the one, it was the same one he used in 6 for Undiscovered Country when he was playing Moog. It was just this. It had this almost presence and this bass rumble to it that just lent a heaviness and a certain level, not so much of menace, but of it's hard to put into words, but I missed it. I will admit that I missed it. There was a part of me that was like, you couldn't fix that in post. Like you couldn't just like grabbed him and like, hey, Mike, we're going to ADR some stuff. We're going to ADR your lines. And then we're going to send this over to the studio and they're going to lower the octave by like a third. I mean, just something, but I can get behind it. I'm not up to upset.
I was going to say, it didn't pull me out.
Yeah. So basically what happens is they decide to go after the guy who apparently bought the weapon from the Ferengi. They go after him. They capture him in a great scene. Rafi loses him. Worf never had him lost. Worf is still Worf. He's like,
yeah,
I got this. And, he's kind of letting, this is my headcanon, but I'm kind of imagining he's just kind of letting Rafi kind of be a part of it. He's like, yeah, you go, you little girl. Yeah, it's all good.
Show me what you got.
Show me, or try. Well, actually, I think it's more along the line of trying to get her back on the, because she is broken. She's still broken. Like she had a breakdown right in front of him where she's like, my family, my kids, I'm still using drugs. Like the whole thing, I think he was more letting her be the point because he was like trying to give her, like, let's give her the win. And when it was obvious she was going to lose it, he's like, well, shit. All right, let's go. And so they get the guy back. They start doing the interrogation. He's obviously going through detox from this drug that Rafi takes until Worf realizes he's not going through detox.
And I love the good cop, bad cop scenario they had going on. Whether that's actually Worf's demeanor now or not, we'll see.
Well, it was really well done. And then so he's in the chair and so he says or does something. I forget. Or did he shift a little? But where Rafi was like, what the hell is this? And Worf immediately, and that's again, Michael Dorn. You can kind of see him letting Rafi take point. He's kind of involved, but he's kind of standing off. The minute he hits to what's happening, his posture changes and he's like, okay, I'm in this now.
I'm on it. Yep.
And he's like, I know what's happening here. How long has it been since you were able to regenerate? And the guy looks at him and tries to play it off. He's like, your people. I have a very good friend who told me how long you people could stay in solid form before you'd have to go back to liquid. And Rafi looks at him like, wait, and says, wait, he's a changeling? And
Yeah. See, I think, we saw this after we saw
Right.
the guy in the on the Titan, and
yeah,
I don't think I had it quite pegged that the guy on the Titan was a changeling.
the minute I saw him
But
hit, I knew. I was like, oh, they're
I,
bringing
I
Odo.
knew there was something going on. I didn't have changeling. I had some sort of changeling net
Yeah.
type thing or something.
Well,
I
now
didn't
that I
have
look
the
at
actual
Vatic,
changelings.
okay, you look at Vadic's hair, you look at Vadic's ears. Granted, she can't help how her ears are. My conjecture, my speculation, is she Odo? Or some sort of spawn of Odo? She kind of has his hair. She kind of has his ear. I'm like, okay, obviously you can't. Rene Auberjonois is gone, unfortunately, which would have been fantastic to have him. But I'm looking at this going, I wonder if this woman is, in some way related to Odo. I feel like now she's a changeling. That's almost obvious. But let's kind of wrap this up because time's getting short. The guy kind of gives us the info dump that, the Dominion, yes, they lost the war. And then Riker also kind of gives us some where he's like, after the Dominion War, there were some changelings who didn't want to give up, basically, and came back to the Federation solely to destroy the Federation because of losing the war. And these, they're not really part of the Great Link or anything like that. They're kind of renegades, even of the changelings. And that's what this guy is. And they're just trying to basically do this. And Worf and Rafi are like, okay, we have to work together because we have to stop this. So, and that's kind of the episode. I mean, there are a few other points that pits to hit. But, I mean, overall, again, I want to give this a B. I would give it a B+. I'm struggling with the conflict. I am as an old-time Trek fan.
Yeah.
I'm struggling with the conflict because, again, Starfleet is supposed to kind of be past all that. The 24th century Earth, we're supposed to be past all that, and what's going on right now is this fighting and stuff. Again, Picard was such a military man that in no way, shape, or form, even though he's an admiral, and even though he was under admirals on his ship 1,000 times where he wanted to crush their throats,
he respected the chain.
He would respect the chain of command. He would say, okay, it's your call. I'm backing it. He would call Riker. Now, if he had said, Will, we need to talk in this ready room over here. Do you have a ready room? Let's go over here and talk. But by doing it on the bridge in front of everybody, that feels so not like Picard.
Yes.
That I'm really struggling with that. And that feels like lazy writing. That really does. It would have took him 35 seconds to say, let's step into this room. And then, because then, at least in the writing, they're kind of acknowledging that. At no point does Riker lose his demeanor. At no point does he say, you would never have pulled this on the bridge. But
let's drop the cone of silence and talk.
Yeah, exactly. They should have gone into the ready room. But again, it's so much conflict. I do not. I want these people. These 7 people are supposed to be, and whether we like it or not, I kind of want the happy ending we got with all good things where they're sitting around the table playing poker, and have them fighting like this. There's a part of me that's like, but again, I get it, and again, I know that Ronald D. Moore and other writers who were ham-fisted for, 20 years writing, second generation Trek, where Roddenberry's edicts hung because Rick Berman said so. I am sure that they're sitting there going, man, you guys are doing it. Congratulations and all that. But as a longtime fan, I'm sitting here going, it feels wrong,
Yeah.
But I can get around it too because it is good. I do want to know what happens. I mean, the Titan is falling into a singularity. Now, they're obviously going to get out of it. But, and I got to imagine it's going to involve LaForge. in some way, shape, or form, Jodie LaForge is going to come through on this one.
Yeah, absolutely.
But
and
thoughts?
by the end of the 10th episode, I'm sure we will all be one big happy family.
Oh, sure, absolutely. So, what were your thoughts on the episode?
I mean, I was when the guy in the chair finally revealed the founder. Like I said, I wasn't on Changeling for the guy on the ship,
Mm-hmm.
but when the guy turned into a puddle of goo, I was like, oh, the fit has hit the shan now.
Yes.
We're in trouble. I see it.
Right. So
I really enjoyed the whole up.
I did too. I did. I have concerns, But that's kind of our episode review. Let's take a second here. We'll come back and we'll go to the Beam Me Up and kind of talk about the episodes kind of that you can watch with this. So we'll be right back.
When toxic culture has you down,
when you're just looking to laugh and have fun,
kick back and enjoy watching a video game,
or just make some new friends,
it's time to visit the Geek to Geek Media Network,
a community of podcasters, streamers, and bloggers.
Well, more of a family than a community.
All dedicated to geeking out about the things we love. Things like
video games,
Star Wars,
comics,
movies,
K-pop,
Disney Plus,
Keanu Reeves,
new,
or whatever our community decides is the next best thing.
That's right. We have a great online community on Slack and Discord where we chat about our weekly geekery with listeners and viewers.
And each other.
Yep, and each other in real time, and we can't wait for you to join us.
So come check us out at geektogeekmedia.com.
and escape toxic fandom for something much more...
Keanu.
Yes, Keanu.
All right, Beam Me Up. So, we've kind of compiled a short, small list of companion episodes to watch. Why don't you take the first one, JP? Because you were the one who suggested this.
I mean, now that we know that the founders or the changelings are involved, if you did not watch DS9,
First of all, you should.
First of all, you should, yes. But you especially need to watch a DS9 episode called The Search. It was a 2-parter. You at least need to watch the second part.
You can get the second part, yeah.
This will give you a overview of who the founders
Changelings
are.
/ founders are, yes.
Changelings, yes. They get used interchangeably.
Yes.
Who these people are, what their motives are.
Absolutely. And again, it's definitely worth watching. Understand, I mean, here's the thing. The DS9, this was a strange part of DS9. Because I think this is season 3 is the first season that Ronald Moore moved over from Star Trek. And basically, so he starts off with this really great idea for the Dominion War, and then for some reason Berman or somebody cut him off. And they pivot almost immediately the next episode even to the Klingons. And you have almost a season of Klingons, season and a half. And then it pivots back to the Dominion War. But it is really worthwhile. And again, Trek that had conflict, but did it in such a way that it didn't violate the edict. Again, it can be done. It's just better writers. It was really good. They do kind of go into a lot of who the founders are. You get to see Rene Auberjonois just doing his thing as Odo. Because Odo was a changeling. He was a member of the founders. And
he just didn't know it at the time.
Right. He did not know that. He didn't understand it. And the episode is really good. It kind of also has this Black Lotus Superman flavor to it, which I love. Not to ruin it for anybody. But for me, what I felt was really, really kind of a good companion here was Wrath of Khan. Star Trek II, The Wrath of Khan, the movie. Now, again, it's original cast, but and again, if you're a Star Trek person, you've probably seen it at least once. It's 100%. You definitely are going to see allusions in this episode from that movie. Specifically, the Carol Marcus-Jim Kirk relationship. Carol Marcus was a character we had never met before. who Jim Kirk had a previous relationship with off screen. And when we find Regular One and Kirk is there, he gets beaten up by David Marcus, and basically Carol stops Jim from hitting him. And they walk out, and David Marcus doesn't know, but you see Jim Kirk immediately drop form and go, I did what you wanted. I stayed away. And, and we realized that Jim knew he had a son. He made the decision not to be in his son's life because Carol asked him to. And again, I feel like that was kind of better than what Beverly did in a way. And in a way, and you know what? Now, even that I'm thinking about it, it was horrible writing. And I'm going to tell you why. Because Beverly could have, if she really thought that Picard never thought he wanted to be a father, never thought he would want to be a part of a family, he probably would have said, she could have said, I'm going to raise him by myself. You don't have to do anything. You can do what you want to do. You do not need to be involved. And he probably, would he have walked away or not? I don't know. But
the only thing I can say about that is that putting myself in Crusher's shoes, that if she wouldn't want him to know, because then he would still have that burden and carry it with him, and
right.
it would still potentially put Jack in danger if Picard got tortured to the point that he gave up that he has a son.
Oh, he never would have given it up in a tortured thing, because that's just not who Picard was.
Well, okay,
yeah, I mean, it just
point made. There are four lights. Yeah.
I sit there and think to myself, she could have told him and said, I don't want you involved in his life unless you're leaving Starfleet. Unless you're telling me we are going to go and be a family and you're going to go live in the vineyard, which you don't want to do. I don't want to raise this child. And oh my gosh, they could have had the scene where she's like, Jean-Luc, we just destroyed a ship with family on it, 1,000 souls. And yeah, we had 900 live. But what are we going to take our son through the galaxy on a ship? What kind of parents would we be? Again, they missed an opportunity there. And I get why they did it, but because in all honesty, you couldn't have done that and had seasons 1 and 2 make any sense. Because even if they had retconned it and said, he's always known, it happened after Nemesis, and he knew even in seasons 1 and 2. Well, that doesn't explain how he treated Data's daughter. Like, all of a sudden, shit don't make sense. So I guess I got to give them credit for not trying to retcon this in such a way that doesn't make sense. But, you watch Wrath of Khan, and it's done right. It's done perfectly. And again, Shatner is not the most emotive of actors in the world, but he sells it. He's like, I've got up there a guy I haven't seen in 20 years trying to kill me. You show me a son who'd like to help. Like, that stabs. So yes, Wrath of Khan. Definitely I would watch that. What's your next one?
I think you got to also look at it was a TNG episode called The Icarus Factor.
I love this episode.
Some of the costumes in it are hideously wonderful.
Oh yeah.
Or
fantastic.
Wonderfully hideous.
Absolutely fantastic.
We are introduced to Will Riker's father.
Yes. Thomas, right?
No.
Oh no, Thomas is his middle name. That's
Thomas
why.
is his middle name. Oh.
Don't worry about it. Keep going.
But it was Pulaski actually knew him.
Yes, exactly. They finally found something for Pulaski to do.
Yes. But it's the whole episode, Riker is
Kyle
mulling
Riker.
over. What's that?
It's his father, Kyle.
Kyle. Yes.
Kyle.
But Riker is mulling over the promotion that he's been offered to take command of the
Ares.
Icarus.
The Ares.
No.
I thought. Oh, okay.
No, it actually was the Icarus.
No, it was the USS Ares. I'm looking right at the memory alpha. Icarus. Okay. Yeah, sorry.
All right. I reserve the right to be wrong.
It's all good.
But and
Yeah, it's just the fall. It's about the falling of Icarus. Like that's why it's there.
Yeah,
it was the Ares
Kyle Riker comes on board to try and push Will over into the Ares.
Right.
And they end up having a big blow up with Will going, "You were never there when I needed you growing up.
Yep.
Mom died and you
were just kind of a nozzle."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they have futuristic
Anbujatsu. They have an Anbujatsu match. Basically, they grabbed the pugil sticks from American Gladiators.
Okay. So yeah, they have this American Gladiators style fight, and Will figures out that his father had been cheating all these years. And Kyle mentions that it was the only way to keep you interested, because I knew I couldn't kick your ass anymore.
Yes. And it was a good episode. It does kind of colors Picard. And I guess, and especially in this episode, because Beverly says one of the reasons she didn't tell Picard is that Picard shared with her he never wanted to be a father in case he became like his. And, I like that you chose this because Riker was certainly not Kyle. So that holds no water. I'm glad you chose this one as well. So for me, the last one I chose, which I thought was really good, and I think you mentioned it too, is The Inner Light. I actually just watched it again today. And it's a TNG episode, season 5, maybe second to last episode. They come across a probe in space. The probe seeks out Captain Picard, puts him into a trance, and Picard ends up living an entire lifetime in his mind that this alien race, this probe designed for him to basically share their knowledge of who they are because they knew their son was going nova. But in it, you see Picard become a father. Okay, so for the first 10 years, he's fighting to get back to the Enterprise. Finally, he accepts it. Either the Enterprise was a dream he had, or he's just never going to get back, and he needs to live in the now. He starts to have children with his wife, Aline, and one of the characters, by the way, is his actual son.
I was about to ask if this was the episode that had Patrick Stewart's son.
Patrick Stewart's son playing his son. So, 100%. Kind of shows the kind of father Picard would be. And again, I'm not doing this to poke holes, but Beverly was very well versed in what happened on that thing. He told her everything. And at no point did she think to herself and go, well, he was kind of a father once before. Again,
that was one of the Easter eggs I kept looking to see and never did, was that little flute that he got.
It was in episode 1
at the end of it. Is it in the episode?
Yeah, it was in episode 1. Things he was getting rid of, and he's like, I don't want to get rid of the flute. Like they mentioned that. So, but that's kind of that. We'll push the comic off till next week. The other thing I want to talk about real quick before we get out of here, because we are running a bit long. We do have some birthdays this week from Trek people and stuff around. So we had Madeline Wise, who played Picard's mom, March 1st. Gates McFadden's on March 2nd. Ethan Peck, who played Spock in Discovery and then Strange New Worlds, was March 2nd as well. James Today, right. Happy birthday to both of them. James Doohan, obviously Montgomery Scott. He was, March 3rd. Steven Weber, who played Colonel Day in The Siege on DS9, also a well-known actor from very many things. You wrote Wings? No, sir. Studio 60 on the Sunset Strip. Take that.
Fair enough.
No. Steven Weber, March 4th. Dean Stockwell, obviously passed away. Played Al in Quantum Leap, but he was also in an episode of Enterprise with Bakula. And then, of course, Jolene Blaylock, which I find incredibly hard to believe. She was only 2 years younger than me, 47, on March 5th. I'm like, good on you. All right. Yeah. Michael Eisner, who was once the head of Disney and also Paramount, March 7th. Michael Jan Friedman, who kind of was an author. He wrote a bunch of the books for Star Trek, same day. Donna Murphy, One of my favorite actresses, not from Insurrection, even though she was Angie in Insurrection. She's an incredible Broadway actress. Has an incredible range and a beautiful singing voice, 100%. She's also March 7th. And then Jonathan Del Arco is Hugh from TNG, and he was on the 7th as well. So those are kind of the birthdays. But I think we should probably start wrapping things up here. What do you think there, JP? Are you ready for us to head out? Or you got anything you want to say about the episode? Or
I think I'm ready to head out. We'd like to thank everyone for listening to us today, and I think we're gonna get ready and close our hailing frequencies.
Yeah, let's hailing frequencies closing then. Yep.
Hailing frequencies closed, sir.
All right. So as we warp out of this sector, we want to remind you guys where you can find us online, offline, and everywhere else. First, you can download this podcast on almost any podcatcher right now. I've got us on most of them. There's a few I've still got to get us into, but definitely the two big ones, Google and Apple, we're 100% in there. Or you can just go to the website we have designed through Anchor. It's podcast.yourfatherstrekkcast.com. Likewise, if you have an Apple iPhone or if you use iTunes in any capacity whatsoever, please, please, please consider going to our page in the podcast store and leaving a 5-star review. If you're going to leave a 1-star review, please don't. But 5-star reviews are really the way Apple Podcasts algorithm works is the more 5-star reviews we get, the higher up in the searches will go. So by going onto Apple Podcasts and 5-star reviewing the show, it will help this show far more than any Patreon or anything else. Please, please send that. As a new show, this does a ton to help get new eyes and ears into the show. The link for that, if you need it, is on our Anchor page. So please check that out.
Yes, and you can also like our YouTube channel and subscribe at youtube.com/@yourfatherstrekkcast and follow our Facebook at facebook.com/yourfatherstrekkcast.net.
No, not what .net.
Wait. .net? Oh no, just it's /yourfatherstrekkcast.
Yeah, there's no .net. Where the hell did that come from?
I don't know.
There's no .net on the page. All right. Well, we have a website as well. We want to remind you that we're working on. It's at yourfatherstrekkcast.com. And of course, if you want some great gaming content for Marvel Snap, Minecraft, and other stuff out there, you can always find me at Old Man Gamer NY on Twitch and YouTube.
And if you'd like to email us, you can send one to Will at will@yourfatherstrekkcast.com or me at jp@yourfatherstrekkcast.com.
And I did want to get into this. JP had a friend send him a very long comment about the show. I wanted to read it on air. We might save that. You know what? Once Picard's over, we're going to have a little bit more space in the show for things like that. We will read emails on the show. I love to do it. So that, guys, is going to do it for us this week. Again, I want to thank you so much for hanging. We'll be back next time, hopefully with some cool outro music here, because I haven't found any yet or haven't written any in GarageBand. Started one, and then I kind of lost it. So I'm just going to leave this without any outro music. But for JP and myself, thank you so much for listening or watching if you're watching us live. Please remember to tell your friends about this show. Let us know what you think. Please reach out through emails or Discord or anything like that. And, with that, we just want to remind you that we'll see you next time out there. That away.